Welcome, Ashwin. Thank you for speaking with me on Speak with Anuj. I'm very excited about this particular episode because you have been a very dear friend and somebody who's been a huge inspiration for me in terms of voice, being a voice artist, somebody that I've looked up to. And occasionally I've turned to you for advice for a lot of things. And we have that wonderful relationship. But today I want to decode everything that we do as voice artists in the business.
I like that. Yeah.
And I'm so happy to speak with you on this. So thanks for coming on and doing this, man.
It's not the best grammar, but what is decode? Yeah, to all of this.
We shall break it down into parts and assess. And then see, the idea of this podcast is that anyone who tunes in should be able to take away 2 or 3 pieces of information or tips and tricks that they can apply in their own lives and become better communicators.
Correct.
Essentially, I've been in the business of communication for the last 20 years. As you know, I've been hosting events and singing and voicing and acting. After all of these years, I want to learn apart from the regular training that we do, through the internet. We try and upskill ourselves. But I want to talk to people from various walks of life and understand what your communication style is and see what I can take from that style and apply it to make myself a better communicator, make the audience, the listeners or viewers better communicators. That's the whole idea of this podcast. The first thing, of course, I couldn't help but notice you are sitting in your self-made voiceover booth that you've created
on
your own.
Self-made, yeah. If I want the backdrop gone, my curtains here.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
it's white against black. But yeah, that depends what you want. Yeah. If you like that, it's fine. I can stick with this. Yeah. If you want a little bit of light coming in, then I just pull it back.
Wonderful. What brought about this innovation?
Well, like I've mentioned to other people, the immediate change to all of that came from COVID. I think that just pretty much turned all our lives around, especially in the work that we're doing. I used to tell people, and I still do, for all the years that I've been voicing, our job was just to go into the studio and we used to just walk into that room, stand in front of the mic, do our stuff, walk out and feel we're pretty good. And then COVID came, and then COVID showed us, apart from not knowing what COVID was, it showed us what we didn't know at all in this profession. And I think you and I had more than a couple of talks about what to do. And I realized that we knew nothing about the back end of the voice industry.
Yeah.
Because other people took care of that for us, and that made us look good. But suddenly when we had to do it for ourselves, we had absolutely no clue what to apply, how to apply, when to apply, because suddenly I was getting clients saying, but bhai, ye process nahi hai. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what is it that you need? Oh, radio sound chahiye. What people hear on TV and radio, that's the sound that they want. And I'm like, I'm in bit of trouble. I remember when we had that audiobook project from Commune, that's when we really had lots of talks. And that taught me so much. I jumped into that without knowing anything, and they were kind enough to be patient with me. But that suddenly showed the lack of substance or value from the production side. And suddenly I thought, I have to learn about this. I need to learn about this because I can't keep on going to an engineer every time. I can't contact somebody and say, hey, I need this processed, because then when somebody needs something again, I have to go back again. That's when I sat down and decided to do an audio engineering course. I did the whole YouTube thing, learning first. I'm pretty sure you started on Audacity as well. I don't know whether you did.
Yeah.
I think
everybody
does. And I know a lot of people knock it down, but it's just something that is available there, which is free to use and still allows you to do so much. And there'll come a time when you go, yes, it isn't enough. And that's when you need to step up and move on. But until that time, it worked. It taught me so much of general recording. But then suddenly I had to add things. So that's when I did my audio engineering course to understand how to use audio engineering for voiceover. I'm not talking about general mixing and mastering, which I also learned, but how to apply all that to voiceover. And I did a course from somebody in the States, a guy called Don Barnes, actually, who's an amazing guy. In fact, he's the guy who, he likes to also say that, and he's proud of it, and rightly so. He always says, you have a software or plugins called Isotope RX, which almost any studio in the world use for audio enhancement, for audio correction. He's the guy who made them do the click removal tool for voice, where when we're voicing and the clicks come and all of those sounds come in. He's the guy who pushed in to apply that for voice. And what we have now is because he's really pushed them to have that. And now that's just a setting I just leave on. I always tell people I have a noisy mouth, not from general speaking, just a noisy mouth. When suddenly you're in front of a microphone, you listen to your headphones, you go, what are all these sounds? So he's the guy who pushed them to that. And that was an amazing tool, actually. The click removal where you just put in. So you learned about how to use all of those. You learned the different aspects of using the different finer plugins, and you don't over process stuff, but you just get it good enough. You're never going to be that engineer, but you're going to be good enough that when you're working with corporates, working with most 96% of the people you work with, it will be good enough. And I believe every person working in voice should learn that side as well. They should we used to have conversations about what plugins to use, remember?
Yes. And thanks to your advice, I have really implemented a lot of that in my setup. I mean, this is my home studio, and I have a little bit of acoustic treatment. This is incredible, the way you've also explained the whole reason that you got around to innovating. And COVID was a huge reality check for a lot of us in terms of artists who were always front stage or behind the mic. And then we needed to push ourselves to understand what goes much more deeper in the process. This had been how many years since you've been an actor, stand-up comic? How many years had it been when COVID hit?
When COVID hit, so COVID hit in 2020, and by the time I'd come back from the UK after I'd been to drama school, fiddled around out there trying to get in work. I came back around 2003, so almost 20 years. So it would have been almost 17 years since then, since COVID hit and just uprooted absolutely everything. And you were asking about this. After doing all that, I got down to thinking, how can I make a space at home? And my father-in-law, who passed away recently, he was a musician, but he understood sound. He really understood sound. And he said, you know what? You don't need this, and this. You just need this. And he helped me design this using what kind of wood, what kind of cloth I should use. And he also gave me a really interesting idea, was he said, most people make flat boxes. He said, I want you to taper it up like a house so sound can dissipate.
Such a simple, small detail, the angles, because when voiceover artists think of a booth, they think of just a box and your mic is in it. The reason I asked how many years had it been since you'd been an actor in drama school, because when COVID hit, despite how experienced you were, you had to innovate and adapt to not just get ahead, but keep it going.
Yes. Number one, of course, acting work went to zero. And there was no possibility of that for quite a few months because nobody had any idea what was going on. And even if you went on the sets, there was a little bit of chaos. Luckily, people like you and me have this as well. I'm not saying that this was a be-all and end-all job, but it was something that we had built ourselves, which was the voice world. But we never thought of it as a home product till this hit.
It's interesting because when I started making my so just when Unlock started happening, right now I'm in a new place, but the earlier apartment that I was in, I created a whole room into a studio.
I saw that as well.
Yeah, with acoustic panels and everything. I slowly built that up. And I'm now realizing that we're in 2025 and it's been almost 5 years that I've not stepped into or hired a studio to go do a voiceover, because all of my voiceover projects I just do from home. I just switch on the mic, it's plug and play, and I'm able to do this virtual recording here. And of course, hosting events was a big thing. So when I was hosting virtual shows throughout the pandemic, I was just doing it right here. And that's given me so much more to learn about not just the world of voice, but how the ability to communicate is not limited to just being in person. And I'm talking about the art of voicing, for instance, as a communication exercise. An actor on the screen is speaking to an audience, something that has been shot in advance. An MC, like you and I do a lot of work, are speaking directly to an audience in the flesh. But with voice work, the communication exercise is via a medium where they have no clue who we are. How do you make your voice and your messaging effective, indirect?
Okay, so there's one aspect which is just voicing. When people hear from commercials to corporate videos, they never really look or they never try to understand who's behind that. Nobody ever has, really.
Yeah.
Then the dubbing scene also kind of exploded after COVID because the streamer, everybody, I think we watched almost every show in the world. So essentially, we were always watching UK or American shows. Suddenly, wo khatam ho gaya. Then what do we watch? Then we're watching shows from Spain. We're watching shows from Belgium. We're watching shows from Korea because we were just saying, what do we watch tonight? And people were suddenly watching all of that. And the market for those dubbings suddenly started, plus regional from Tamil, Malayalam for movies, that also came about. But essentially something like Money Heist. That was something, this exploded.
You are the professor.
I am the professor in that. 48 episodes. And people really searched for who did the voices. The Indian dub is one of the best dubs out there. Even if you look at the English, the Hindi dub is absolutely phenomenal. And I've always said, I've been stopped at airports by people, and usually somebody will say, can I take a picture? And you would say, you would think because they've seen you in something. And people have actually come and said, I want to take a picture of you. You mean you're the voice of the professor, aren't you? And that's just so nice to hear that people are actually making their effort to know which artist did which role, which nobody ever did before, because that respect usually never came. People also look at voicing this, mic ke samne jate hain aur bas kuch bolte hain, bas utna hi hai. They don't understand the dynamics behind it, what goes behind it. Like everything, even saying actor, bas camera ke samne. There's so much that goes on. Suddenly, people were searching the voice actors out, and I think that's really lovely. It doesn't happen in the ad space too much, but I think that took a whole boost because it also allowed the actors to talk about that they were doing this, that they were this voice, that they were this character. And it's really strange for something like Money Heist, and it still kind of takes me back to this day, how people almost treat my voice as the character in India.
I totally relate to that. I mean, every other day or every other week, I get messages from people about me voicing the Falcon, which you can see up there on my bookshelf. And it's been 10 years doing that, and you, in a sense, become the character for a whole fan base
because you do it for so long.
That's relating to it. So I'll go back to my question. What is it about that aspect of communication that makes it so endearing and relatable to audiences, even though we're not directly speaking with them? We're speaking through what aspects of communication as an exercise do you think goes into it?
Because they're just hearing the story in the language they're comfortable with. Maybe you and I enjoy watching foreign films, international films with subtitles. I'm like that kind of guy. I don't knock down dubbing for the same reason that there are enough people who can't read properly or maybe not very good or not comfortable with that. I am very comfortable. You might be comfortable. Other people are not. And for them to hear the language that they converse in every day, I think makes it more personable and makes them feel closer to the story and to the characters. I probably think it's that.
When you are voicing the character, when you're voicing the professor, not playing the professor, the actor who shot for it in the Spanish original has a certain body language, has a certain expression on screen.
Yes.
How do you match that person's body language or on-screen persona with your voice? What techniques do you employ?
So number one, you have to watch those scenes before you do it. Being an actor as well, an actor who acts on screen, who acts on TV, also helps because you're understanding a part is being played. And I also think for people in the voice profession, they should also do acting classes to understand. It can only make it vice versa. You have actors as well who go into dub and they're not good in the studio, as in screen actors, stage actors, TV actors. And in the same way, you have voice actors who can't translate to screen. I think the acting lessons are important. Once you figure out what the right pitch of voice, how it fits, and unfortunately, you have to look at those movements as well because that is what is going on in sync with the camera. So you can't go away too much from that, but you can bring in different languages have different inflections, different emotions. So when you're doing it in Hindi, even if you're doing English to Hindi, there's always things you can add. When you're watching, the beauty of dubbing, I know people might say, oh, you have, a lot of people think dubbing is mimicking, and it's not. It's still my voice.
Very
I'm
well.
adding my voice to somebody else. It's still my voice. I'm not mimicking them.
Yes.
It's just that your voice is fitting that face for this particular show, this particular movie. So when I watch that, there are always little things. I'm like, hey, I can add a sound here. I can add another, a word, a this, something like this, an inflection that wasn't there as well. So sometimes you can maybe add something, maybe add a little bit more, and it comes out quite nicely. You have, because, within the constraints you have, you do have the ability, or you are allowed to change slight things, and you should always aspire not to change, but to see what you can add. That is it.
Wonderful. There's a delicate balance between the original language that the piece has been shot in and the language that you're dubbing in, due to the cultural nuance that comes in with the language, right? So whether it is from a foreign language film or series, or whether it is from Telugu or Tamil or Kannada being dubbed into Hindi, or vice versa, there is a cultural nuance that you have to bring about as an artist behind the mic.
Yes.
And that, correct me if I'm wrong, depends a lot on your worldview as well. Your observation of the world as well outside the studio. How much exposure you give yourself as an artist, how much aware you are of different, you don't have to go deep diving into cultures, but the slight nuances, and you get that when you read, when you observe, when you watch.
Yes.
So how much of this observation of the world is part of an artist's homework?
I think it's always a part of an artist's homework. I think no matter how many classes you do, no matter what kind of learnings you try to take, I think there's nothing better than real life. To give you the experience, or to show you the understanding of people, of characters. Essentially, any acting is taken from the people around you, the experience you have. When somebody asks you to do something you haven't done, you're going to try and think of somebody you knew who did that.
Yeah.
You're always bound to do something like that. And also the different nuances you have. Spanish is different emotions. Hindi is a different emotion. So you will say something maybe in a more dramatic way because the people watching want a little more drama. Even if that line wasn't that much drama, you add a little bit to it. You try and do that as much as possible. So I sometimes have an argument with the dubbing directors and engineers. I'm the kind of person who, when a question is said in a script, I never say the question. I always do with a statement. People say, "Nay, sir. I mean, question has to happen." I'm like, no, but people don't say things like, "Are you coming early today?" When you're talking, they'll say, "Are you coming early today?" More like a statement. So we always have those kind of, I'm like, nay, yaar, we shouldn't put the question in because it's there in that sentence. But sometimes Hindi requires, they say, no, people who are watching it want to hear that. So you go, okay. And you're also allowed to sometimes change. Sometimes different languages don't have those words in another language. They don't have the same references in the language. So you got to sit down. Quite often, the amount of a script that is rewritten while you're dubbing is unbelievable. People don't realize that. It's been written, it's been put out there, and then suddenly you, the engineer and the director, are like, oh man, we got to rewrite all of this. And you sit down and put that together again, not just for lip sync, but just for the rhyme. And then sometimes you go, this just doesn't sound right for this. I think we have to change that. And the good thing is you do have the leeway and you are allowed to do that. And if you weren't allowed to do that, I think it'd be a very frustrating experience. But we are. You don't change a whole script, but you do change things to make things flowing, to allow for better conversation and to allow for cultural differences. Sometimes, I mean, like you do abuses. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
I'm saying, for example,
No, so
abusing in different languages is completely different. And when you hear an abuse in an English film, in a Spanish or Korean, and then you put into Hindi, sometimes you have to write completely different things. And it's quite funny, actually. Yeah.
true. And it says so much about communication as an exercise, because, for instance, when somebody goes on stage to give a speech,
Yes.
and you have the words written beforehand, which you wrote maybe when you were sitting in your office, in your house,
Correct.
and you said, this is how I'm going to say it. But when you get on stage and you see the audience, a good communicator or an effective communicator has the ability to adapt those words and add and remove what has already been written, without, of course, affecting the structure too much. But keep yourself flexible to just match or read the room and address the room as is, and not stick to the script that has already been given to you. So
Correct.
your instinct as a communicator is very important.
Yes. Or one that you created for yourself. I know you've done probably a lot more than this, and I've only been delving into this in the last year, understanding.
Yep.
Going back, I know we were talking about voicing, but
Yes.
within the last few months, last year, I've also begun to realize how much we forget how unique our voices are for everybody, not in the industry. And this voice that we have is unique. Everybody has their own. And how do we tap into the power of using the potential of the voice that we have within us to make a change, and not necessarily make a change in our life, but just to make a difference in our lives, to see life in a bigger perspective and learn how to use this instrument. And how much I've realized in the last few months of reading and watching other people, how much of it is an instrument that we just don't realize is in there within us, from pitch, modulation, how much we can use, and we just don't use that for effective communication, because it's just been with us and we never thought we could do anything different with it. And the other day I was doing a lecture session, which is, they call me to do a lecture session for an hour. I was like, an hour? You want me to speak? I said, not 10 minutes. They said, no, 1 hour. I'm like, okay, I can talk. I can do that. So essentially what I'd actually done, I was wondering what to do. I prepared the first 10 minutes with you do as a story to understand people, your journey, so that they can understand you and why you're telling this story to them. Right? There should be a reason why you're telling. It's just not a random story that you went to get a vada pav from somewhere and people are saying, what connection does that have? There has to be a reason why you're telling that story. And after that, I had essentially put down bullet points and I went on from there. And I spoke for 1 hour, 45 minutes, not for 1 hour.
Wow.
But I think the reason why I was able to do that was because I had prepared the first 10 minutes.
True.
So I had gone with the preparation, and that started. And after that, there was a flow with things that I knew about. And obviously you do your homework. I'm going to talk about this, and make sure that you have that list nearby so you know that you're going through all of them. And then people are welcome to ask questions. But I realized that if I hadn't gone in without being ready with that first 10 minutes or so, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. So the rest of the adaptability came from that.
Doesn't it feel like you might lose control if you haven't prepared the whole thing in advance? This whole trust the process, be in the flow versus be in control of everything.
I was still in control of everything. It wasn't that wasn't the case. But I realized if I just spoke for 1 hour and the next thing, I just said, let me just come in with my story, with a specific story, and the rest will flow. And I went back to that story later on as well. There's a reason why I started with that, is because I could also connect back to it later. Yeah. But sure, I can understand it going in without preparation for an hour, but I also knew the subject I was talking about because I was talking to a bunch of people who were doing voice training. So I did understand that. So I figured I work back from what I thought the questions they would ask me if they were asking questions. So what are the
That's an
kind of
interesting approach to
questions?
take.
What are the kind of questions they could ask me? I made a whole list. Then I discarded some, and I'm saying I'm pretty sure that if I stopped and say questions, they would ask me all of this.
Very interesting. So you prepared your own FAQs section, and
without it being an FAQ.
Without it being an FAQs. Very interesting. Very interesting approach. I'm gonna learn that.
I just thought
put that to practice.
That was a possible way of doing that. I have been asked to speak to some people. I've never been asked to speak for an hour. So maybe I was just trying to put something together saying, what can I do that I can speak for an hour and not be articulate, not be inarticulate, not show that I didn't know my subject. I was saying I do know my subject. At least let me go into the preparation of a beginning. And through that, you know your end as well. Trust me, that end will come. But I thought this was a good way of tackling. And then they did ask more questions apart from that. But I did answer a lot of these things by putting this down, though it looked as part of my speaking session.
Interesting.
Maybe it works, maybe it didn't. It definitely helped me out here. You, like I said, you've probably done a lot more than that. You are way more experienced at anchoring, and Speak with Anuj is way more experienced than Speak with Ashwin. Maybe that is hopefully going to get better, but it is something I've really been looking into in the last few months. What is beyond the voiceover world? What is beyond that to help people use their voice to start, like you said, communicating effectively? And everybody needs that in their lives for anything. You need effective communication, whether you're in the office, whether you're just getting a cab, whether you're in a shop. No matter what you're doing on the phone, how are you on the phone when you're talking to people?
Exactly.
I don't think people look at that. Are you communicating effectively with that? So I think that's a whole area that I think is untapped, actually.
You don't have to be in the business of communication to be an effective communicator.
Correct.
Right? You can be doing any profession, but you are as good as you communicate.
You are as good
as you present yourself. Now, I want to go back to the other part of your profession, your vocation, which is acting.
Yes.
And being on camera. Now, there's a very big difference. Again, you're also a stand-up comic, and
but I'll correct you there. I wish I was a stand-up comic, and a lot of people think I am. What I had initially started with in the good old sketch comedy, in the good old comedy days, when we did a lot of sketch comedy and stand-up as well. And I used to be part of all the sketch comedy teams. Unfortunately, sketch comedy kind of died in India because of the whole atmosphere we live in. Because sketch comedy is about, you really are hitting at people. Absolutely. You are really taking digs from politics to culture to corporations. So unfortunately but I was a part of all the other people who are very good stand-up comics then, and I had the pleasure of working with all of them while doing sketch comedy. So I just wanted to tell you
for putting that into perspective. So I'm going to rephrase.
Yes.
So there are three ways primarily of the performing arts. There are three branches of the performing arts that you engage in. Let's say sketch comedy, where you are on stage or you're doing theater, right?
Yes.
There is a live audience.
2,
you're an actor on camera.
Correct.
3, you're voicing as an actor, no camera, no stage, there is a mic. So break these three down into their most basic differences and how you adapt yourself as a communicator. Let me think up an example. You are doing a play based on, let's say, Shakespeare, for instance, and then that play is converted into a film where you are called on to do the character, and you act on camera, and then you are also required to dub for your own lines or maybe dub for another actor, not you, maybe change your voice, modulate it, and up. Now tell me how you, Ashwin Mushran, would adapt yourself in all three circumstances.
So number one, let's just take away the fact that people say screen acting, stage acting, different, and fine, that's all there. For stage is a bigger medium. Stage is more projection. If you do tiny minimal on stage, people won't see it. So even minimal has to be larger. It just has to be.
Wonderful.
You don't have the choice about that, because people sitting at the top, what do they see? So you have to also give them that. I'm sure there'll be larger gestures, there'll be more physical, there will be stiller characters as well, but you can't just be, I'm like this and I just go raise my eyebrows.
Yeah.
That's seen on screen. If I'm there on stage, look at someone and I go, nobody would have seen that. So maybe there, instead of just raising an eyebrow, you would go,
yeah.
right? And people have noticed something. The stage is just bigger. And of course, there's a lot more projection. You're trying to make louder projection seem as natural as possible. I know it's a really tough thing to think about. Even if you and I are standing or sitting next to each other on stage, ideally, if we were in our house, in your house, in my house, hey, we'd be talking like this to each other, because talking to us like this would be, somebody would say, those two are two deaf guys meeting.
True.
Right? Or two friends just trying to talk loudly at each other. But you will still have to try and match that, make that seem natural and not seem loud. That is just something that comes from experience. And people were thinking that you're still having a conversation. On stage, your entries have to be bigger. Everything has to be, you'll have different directors. You will have minimal things happening, but it is just a larger space. I'm sure also when you're anchoring, when you're coming out, you come out. Anuj Gurwara comes out as a presentation before he speaks.
Yeah. As a presentation. You make an entry.
You make an entry.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. That's what I love about stage. I love that stage, you make an entry. Whereas on screen, you're like, Abhi how? Is that finished? Is it off camera? Am I off frame? I'm just saying. Then you get to screen, and suddenly you'll find there have been a lot of theater actors in the past, even from the UK, who sometimes not translate to screen. Lots of people who have. There are lots of actors. So Anthony Hopkins is somebody who says, he says, I really don't like being on stage anymore. He loves film. He'll do it. But his essential training is Royal Shakespeare Company. It's classical drama. But that is a difficult world. And when you get onto screen, you realize what happens by almost doing nothing.
Beautiful.
How much of it, and by doing nothing, sometimes an actor's literally doing nothing. It's the director who knows the scene and he's asked you to do nothing. And then when you do finally watch what the scene was, you're going, wow, I look like I'm so intense and brooding, but I was just thinking, wo mera Starbucks ka cold coffee aa raha hai ki nahi? What was in your head? मैंने spot boy को बोला था 2 घंटे. I told him without cream. I'm thinking, but your director has said, I just want you to be quiet and I just want you to look there at the side. And everybody thinks, wow, what a wonderful actor. No, of course, there are things that you have to do. You have to understand what they want. But the minimal, like I said, when it comes to, that's why the actors who truly understand close-ups. You can do a lot more movement in a longer shot. But a close-up is where they just, I always practice this at home. And I know it seems odd. I practice looks where somebody's called you and it's like you're on a close-up and somebody's called you from that side and you just go, that's it. You wouldn't do that on stage. That can't be seen on stage, but on camera, it looks so much that you just gone, that's you have all those waking up shots in movies and people, when they wake up, they're like this and they go. And that's a lot of power for us. The power for close-up is crazy. I'm always fascinated by actors who understand the power and potential of the close-up. And they understand that by doing nothing, which actually is also a very unreal thing, because in our lives, we do so much. Nobody stays still in real lives. But on camera, that looks good because you're just looking into somebody's face. A look on camera just does, a tiny thing on camera does wonders, because it makes the people watching it feel like they're just drawn into that person's lives. So just the difference, and also speaking. And you'll find so many actors, they speak so soft. Now I was talking about what it's like on stage, and then there's a difference in screen acting where people are just talking to themselves like this. They're going, "Hey, I saw you there." And we're like, but later on, that's the guy taking care of the sound is like, I'm like, "Is that okay?" He's like, "Don't worry." They'll boost all of that. So people speak, because when you're doing a close-up, you're doing to someone, you're going to be speaking like this. And that's also, suddenly you come from stage and suddenly you have to you have to learn to adapt that volume to screen, because you have professional audio being recorded. You have sync sound. You have somebody who's on that. They're great mics. You have to adapt to all of that. So suddenly you're thinking about all of this. And it's quite an interesting contrast from coming from large to suddenly coming to softer, smaller. I think apart from physical comedy, there's a lot about screen which is smaller. The canvas is big. The actor is smaller sometimes in what he does. But in screen, the canvas, that's why you go to screen, because of the canvas. Yeah. And then, like you said, you have to go and dub. Then you're under the constraints of what that actor has done. Sometimes I hate dubbing for myself, because I'm the kind of actor who does a lot of up. So I know I take breaks, and that's horrific when you're going to dub. When you're going to dub, you want a smooth thing, and you're like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" You're like, "Yeah, I came in this morning and it was, yeah, man, tough day." And you're like, "How do I dub that?" And you have to get things like that right. So I sometimes hate going in for myself, because I know I've done that in scenes. I do like to, in real life as well. I also believe we break up sentences. We go midway from a sentence to another thought, and that's why it breaks up a sentence. And you have to deal with that. So you have to deal with the actor on screen, what they've done. Essentially, you have to get your timing right. Somebody watching is going to look at lip movements for dubbing. They look good. When a sentence starts, if that starts like that, you're going to see closed lip, open lip. If it's not, the audience notices. So the main thing is to get that start and finish with the right lips. People let go of things in between. But then like I told you before, what else can you add? And that's when you come in as an artist. What can you add? And that's where you say, "Can I do that line again? I like to just do it with a little more this, little more that." And you're allowed to come in, and you can do that. You can give things more gravitas. You can make things more fun. You can add a little bit more emotion, even though that has already been put there. And there's a fourth area which you didn't mention actually, which is voicing without anything already having done. I've not had too much of a luxury of doing that. When you're doing an animation movie, the actor comes in, do everything. Yeah. And so often they put all the electrodes on you, they put all the different things, all the tech on you, and they get your movements. And they now, because of the whole digital world right now, because of the whole graphic world, they're able to create the character. For example, Andy Serkis from Lord of the Rings. He played Gollum.
Yes.
And when he first been offered that, he was like, just been offered, what am I being offered? Right? And he went in, you're asking how characters are created. So I don't know if you know the story. Do you know the story of how this character was created? I'm sure you've seen it or you've heard it.
I'm aware, but please tell us.
Not that I'm Andy Serkis, and Andy Serkis is just magnificent. What he does.
He's a masterclass. He's a masterclass in character
voice
creation.
But he's actually an actor who also went into all of this. And he was just trying to work out what could he do for this character. And he was sitting, he tells the story, and of course he tells it probably way better than me. He was sitting at home and his cat was in front of him. And right in front of him, while he's trying to work out, what can I go? And I'm going to go in for a test. I've got to show them what I can do. And in front of him, the cat goes, spitting out fur balls. And he just, the way he says it, I just looked at that cat and He said, "This is it."
Wow.
Right? And that was it. His column is out. I don't know how hard it must have been. And that character, which somehow, when you watch that film, I know there's so much despicable about him, but you also feel a certain sadness for Gollum from that eyes. And Andy Serkis brought everything into making a character like that feel a little human to people. But he went in with that, and he must have just blown their minds, because nobody can ever think of that character without that voice, without that sound now.
It's inimitable. It's iconic. It's also, so there's Gollum and there's Smeagol, right? There are two voices and embodiments. I mean, and then he takes you through the whole graph of how Smeagol becomes Gollum.
Because he goes in between.
And how he progressively loses his sanity, how his insanity goes to a next level after the other. And there are 3 films across, the Lord of the Rings. That is a masterclass in itself.
Because he makes Smeagol, when he does Smeagol, he makes him almost childlike. And almost somebody there's a wistfulness, there's that sadness. But Smeagol says, and then
you feel sorry for him.
And goes from that to that. Yeah. How do you dub that? How do you go in another language? At that time, it wasn't done. So there was no fear. But then how do you go and do something like that? Imagine going in saying you're going to be dubbing Gollum. You go, don't do this to me. I don't think anybody should. Yeah. But yeah, he did. And you're right. He made it into within the same lot of dialogues. He had 2 characters brought in. And I don't know how many people think about that character. I think about that character a lot from that film compared to some of the others, because of, I think it was also groundbreaking technology at the time, what they did with it at that time. Yeah, he did it over a period of 3 years, and he physically acted. It wasn't just voicing in the studio. He did stuff. They used all of that. So the pleasure of creating a character where they make the animation afterwards is also beautiful.
Yeah.
Which we don't always have the luxury in India of doing, unfortunately. I would love to. I would love to play a character. I've done so much dubbing. I love to do the character, and then they've done it from the basis of what you've done. That is voice acting, pure voice.
That is voice acting.
Not knocking the dubbing down. I'm not knocking that at all, because that is as well. But this is pure voice acting.
Wonderful. Let me switch gears and go to, some of the training sessions that you also do, which is, whether it was the marvelous Mrs. India pageant that you trained them on presenting themselves. A very common query that I get from my students as well when I'm teaching communication is, how do you add confidence and charisma to your personality? What techniques do you suggest people could employ?
Number one, I think when you're talking as well, people probably don't allow themselves to pause. Sometimes a pause is important if you're going into a new thought. People also don't understand the speed of speaking. What you could say is called rate of speech. They don't understand. They can speak like this for a really long time, and I can be sitting in front of you, I can have a chat, and we're doing this session, and it's been fantastic, and you're going to ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question, and the way I'm talking is going to go like this for 45 minutes, which is also tiring. They don't understand the variation that you can put within your speech. And also, people panic. I think they think that possibly, and this is something I brought when I did that session, and somebody actually came and asked me this, saying I have this regional accent, so I get scared that people don't understand me, or people don't hear me well, or they don't look at me with authority. I'm like, why does your accent have to matter? We all don't have to speak like this. Does that matter? And that shouldn't matter. If you're pointing something like that out, I think that's wrong. What matters is how you speak, just your articulation. speak with varied speeds. Take your time when you have to say something important. I believe you should take your time, because that's when people should really listen. When things are generic, you can always go a little bit faster, because you're talking about a subject that is really going past quickly, and you're going to get to the most important part. But then when you get to something that they really need to hear, that's when you can emphasize it as well. Plus, not just what is called your vocal image, also your body image.
Your visual image, yes.
Your visual image, I believe, is as important as your vocal image. However you want to put it, your voice, your visual image is also important. We all use physicality in our lives, and suddenly we don't when we're speaking. Don't be afraid of using your hands, of using your body to make a point, and using this whole section to talk to people. I think we just don't believe that, we don't use that enough. And that is a huge part of effective, like you say, effective communication. So we need to tap into the two things together, and also not be scared of the voice that you have. I don't believe anybody is asking you to speak the Queen's English. And they shouldn't. And the Queen is not around anymore. So let that go.
Yeah.
We still say the Queen's English. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that from that point of view. I just, especially while doing that session, and they asked all these questions regarding this. And that specific question really kind of touched me, or it kind of stood out to me, because here's somebody who's being held back because she thinks that her accent is the problem.
I have a thought about this that I'd love your perspective on. Is that charisma is something that is very dependent on people around you. If you are alone in a room, it doesn't matter whether you have charisma or not. Charisma is very related to how people perceive you, their perception of you. And I believe the more important or valued you can make people around you feel, the more charismatic you will be to them.
So I'm silent here because that's a good thought. That's going through my... Yes.
Think about spiritual leaders, political leaders, public figures. Anybody who has attracted an audience has attracted that on the basis of what they do makes their audience feel a little important, a little valued, a little
valued.
Like I'm surrounded by a group of people and I'm paying attention to them. I'm talking to them.
Yes.
I make them feel like they are not ignored. And the more I do that, the more charismatic I become for them.
So you're never going to be talking at them.
Exactly. You're involving them in what you're doing. You're not just doing a one-off, I'm saying something and you listen and you walk away. I'm making you part of who I am. And that's where I tell my students, communication is not about what you are saying. It's about how you are making the other person feel.
That's why always, again, something I've been learning and looking at from all the teachings that I've been going through in the last few months in the year. That's why telling a story is also important. You tell a story to connect with the people. Like I said, not a random story, but there has to be a reason why you're telling that story. And that's how you make people also connect to you. And by telling that story, you're never talking at them, because then they're listening to you. They're listening to a certain journey that has gone about. And that's what brings them into you.
They want to be on that path with you to the end of that.
And you also want them to think about that path, which is why you're bringing it up.
Yeah. So charisma is not flashy outfits or sunglasses or being loud and boisterous. You can be loud and boisterous.
That is image.
Because if you make
that is just
but
image.
If you make the other person feel intimidated, you're not charismatic.
So I said that is just pure image. You have an image.
That's pure image. Yeah.
Now, when you speak, do people think differently about you? When you walk in, you've not said a word, and everybody goes, "Wow. Look at that guy, look at that girl, look at them."
Yeah.
and you've not spoken. But once
I
you've
read
spoken,
this.
is there a different impression? That is what one has to think about.
Yes. I read this somewhere and it stayed with me, is that your energy introduces to the room before you have even started saying a word.
Yes. So that is energy. That is not what you're wearing. Of course, don't be naked.
Not what you're wearing.
Yeah, don't be naked, because you'd give a completely different energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's an energy with people screaming and running the other way. But yeah, clothes don't make that energy, but a voice will bring that energy.
So I want to run a very interesting incident by you. I was training my students in the school that we run to give a speech. And the girl and the boy who were giving that speech together were saying it in a particular way that they had formulated. And then I was trying to tweak their presentation style. And I often notice this, that women or girls shy away from opening their voice because of social conditioning.
I was just going to come.
They're always conditioned to clam up and be subtle and be quiet, whereas the boys and men are socially conditioned to be boisterous or
louder
or open up. Or if they don't speak enough, you say, "Why are you speaking like a girl?" or "Why are you whimpering like a girl?" And that's just so wrong. So when you train, let's say, beauty pageants, the contestants in a beauty pageant, how do you open them up? How do you help them? Sorry, not a great choice of words, but how do you help them open up their voice and break that social conditioning of shirking away and constricting themselves into a mold?
Well, since I had only been in sessions online, I didn't do that physically, but there is something I brought up, and I was actually going to also ask you or talk to you about this. Essentially, it's a volume problem.
Yes.
It is purely about volume.
Yes.
Some of us, and again, this is from what I've been going through, what I've been seeing, some of us think we're speaking loud and we're not. There are a lot of people who are speaking loud and think they're not speaking loud, and we know they're speaking loud. But a lot of people think, they don't realize that on a scale of 1 to 10, they think they were at an 8 volume and actually they're at a 4. Inside, they think they're speaking really loudly because they think speaking out loudly means you're shouting. And this, I'm talking to you right now out here. But essentially, I'm also talking to you right now like there are more people in the room. It may be just Anuj in front of me. Yeah. But I'm also understanding that later on people might watch this. So if I just have a normal conversation like we have on the telephone, that's not really going to work. In this, I'm still talking to you as if there are another 20, 30, 40, 50 people in the room and they are watching this as a talk. But I believe people are afraid of opening up their voice, of allowing that, they're afraid of allowing the natural voice to come out. And the natural voice can always be at a higher volume. And the more that they do that, I believe more confidence will set in. And like you said as well, these women, these girls, these ladies, if they really start doing that, they will find a huge difference in their lives by being more confident, by being able to speak out. A little more loud will allow them to do more things and allow them to have their voice. Basically, essentially, this is all about finding the power of your voice for every person. And I'm sure you're going into this with the people that you do, but I truly, truly believe that finding that voice within you and allowing it, the natural volume of it may not be as loud as you think. You can't be in a restaurant and say, "Hey man, how you doing?
Yeah.
What's up? Give me the menu. What are you eating today?" That's bizarre. But me talking to you at this volume, even though you're not in front of me, is not bizarre to me. I hope it's not bizarre to you.
There is a difference between volume and intensity. That I could tune up my intensity but keep my volume the same. Like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Rather than what are you doing?
Correct. Correct. That is also.
often, one example, one analogy that I give is like a keyboard has 3 octaves. You are on the right note, you're just on the lower octave.
Well, look at this point of view as well. Who said this? A piano has 88 keys. So even if they're octaves, they're 88 keys, and that's all sound.
Keys. Yeah, it's all sound.
I'm not a musician, but just to put that together, how do you tap into each one of those? But yeah, that's the same thing within the acting space as well. How do you put that intensity without putting the volume? And people have to understand how to balance those things together. But all the people who are quieter, for them, learning to speak a little louder, I believe, will be of immense value. Because I think too many of us speak too softly in daily lives as well, which comes to the whole mumbling thing. It's essentially wherever we are, sometimes we're just speaking to people and we're just talking like that. And the conversation is going between both of people. But we can talk a little louder. It's not that unnatural.
Yeah, we can.
We can.
Yeah.
Also, the inflections, you have pitch, you have modulation. The inflections that you can get within a sentence. Like, I'm just saying that whether I'm using the word within a sentence as well, just talking to you, and then we can knock it down and we can have a nice talk about what we were doing today, what we had for lunch. And then you say, oh, by the way, man, you have no idea. I went to this concert.
Yeah.
And you have, it wasn't Coldplay because there were no tickets for that. So I just went to another concert. I'm just saying that. We can use all of that. We can use all those inflections, and plus also using the different kinds of people who we are in our lives. We are different kind of people every day with other people. We're different when we go to the shop. We're different with our husbands, our wives, especially if you're staring at them the whole day.
Yeah, or for 90 days a week.
90 days a week. Who can do that? We're different when we go to play a sport. We're different when we go to see the doctor. When you go see a doctor, suddenly you're sitting back. And so we're different people. How do we bring all of those people into one? How do we bring all those people into one? When we're talking somewhere, when we are speaking, people think of public speaking as only addressing a large amount of people. But if you're talking to 2 people, it's still public speaking. Public speaking is also a meeting in an office.
Yeah.
Is also your daily update with the whole team. That's also public speaking. And probably I used to also have a fear of it, but I've looked at all of this. I'm saying this is possible as well. I kind of taken that fear out of me by learning, by watching, by studying, by doing a couple of courses myself. But how do we apply this to all the people in their daily lives? I think that is what really stands out to me, or really comes to me, what I think is really important. How do we get everybody to apply all these aspects of the voice in their lives? And that is for anybody. I know we started off with the voice industry, started off with acting, but communication is for everybody. Without communication, there are no relationships.
Exactly.
You don't build your lives with that. And you are quite an introverted person, though to me, you never have been.
Yeah.
Whenever you tell me, no, man, Ashwin, I like myself alone, but whenever I've spoken to you, I've always seen you as a bigger person. I've never ever seen that. I've never ever seen that within you, even though you have told me so many times. So even if somebody thinks they're introverted, doesn't mean that they can't use this instrument that they have in them.
Correct. I am quite the introvert. I'm quite the recluse, but I am in the business of extroversion.
You're in the business
of communication. Yeah.
Well, there's no reason why you can't be an introvert. No, I'm saying there's no reason why you can't be a person who likes the time he or she spends with themselves. I also like that as well. But you can do this job by helping other people find that voice, because you are the business of that and you understand that voice as well. And when you say an introvert, I never ever believe you, because you have been in front of so many people. If you were truly that scared, you would just clam up and freeze up before you go on. And I disagree with that. But I do have some understanding.
I guess, I'm not, I guess, I'm quite certain after all of this experience that clamming up and freezing up on stage has nothing to do with whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It has everything to do with whether you're prepared or not.
Absolutely. To the level that yes, for anything, even from stage to anything.
Yeah. Anything at all.
However you want.
You just need to find the stage that you are familiar with and comfortable with. Those that you're not familiar or comfortable with, prepare yourself for it and expand, get out of your comfort zone. That's how you will become. But that begins with a tremendous amount of awareness, of self-awareness, of what is holding you back, of what is limiting you back, whether it is social conditioning, whether it is your understanding of your own skill and ability and talent. There is a tremendous amount of awareness that has to come in, then employ techniques, practice them until it becomes part of you, until it gets under your...
There actually is a technique and a really good tool to understand that. And I've already been through this with a few people. I've been through this with myself, so I understand, which is recording yourself. You do that, whether you want 2 minutes, ideally 4 to 5 minutes is good, because and not with a prepared speech.
Yeah.
Go in there, record yourself. Whatever subject you want to talk about, whatever story, do that. Watch that back. Watch that back in silence. Watch it just with the sound. Watch yourself, and you will see how you are. Have a look. Then look at that. Do it again. Come back and see whether any of the things you noticed, or have you applied any of the things after watching yourself from the earlier one. Are you making changes to yourself? This is for you to do. I've done it for myself, actually, and believe me, not the easiest thing, but it really gives you, because you don't know yourself. You don't know the things that you're saying or the things that you're not saying. You don't realize how you're sounding because you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
How do you remove those quiet filler areas where you have no idea what to say?
Yeah.
You're going to get a very different recording. So I'm going to go with you like this, like it's a...
Yay! We're doing a vlog now.
This is a new one. I think the cleaning makes it done.
Oh, lovely.
So now I'll go back. Sorry about that.
No, that's absolutely fine.
No, so this is actually, it's something I've been going through with a few people now, and it's something that I learned as well. And it is truly, truly helpful for anybody to understand. Now, this way you can understand your volume. You can understand your pitch. You can understand your tone. You can understand an emotion. If you're telling a story, what are you doing with that story? Where is that story going? Is that story relevant to the rest of what you're going to say? But to watch yourself do that, I think is eye-opening, ear-opening as well. But it's really important because none of us, a lot of people also have a fear of camera. I know that Reels and TikTok is everywhere, but that doesn't mean that people can also speak. At least, so that is a good exercise to go through for yourself, but just not easy to look at the first couple of times you do it, because then you go,
correct. Oh. You have to get past those first few times when you're going to hate what you see on the screen. But the more you take notes, the more you give yourself feedback, the more you refine it, re-record it.
Yes.
And after a few instances, you will start really understanding who you are.
You have to
what
take
your
back,
voice is.
you have to take away the embarrassment of yourself.
Yes. Oh, beautiful line.
I don't know
Beautifully said.
if that makes sense in a certain way to you, but
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
just remove that from yourself, because even if you're going for a meeting in the office with 10 people, like you said, if you go in without preparation, even that shows. So even when I said I did a recent session, I didn't really not prepare. I just decided how I was going to go about it. I think it's a process called mind mapping, where you map your whole talk, speak, or your whole session, or how you're going to do something. But you still have to know how you're going to start.
Yeah.
You still have to have your content. And like you said, without preparation for anything, even whether it's stage, voice, screen, daily life, without preparation, it will show that you're not prepared.
I've started employing a very interesting technique recently, and it's kind of helped. I got this perspective from somewhere, and I decided to change it. I mean, I decided to change a prior habit that I had. Now, we all go through imposter syndrome. We all go through, is this going to be right or not? You doubt yourself before you get on stage. And you're doubting yourself because you're looking at the worst possible outcome, that this is not going to work. And you know, your voice is going to fail you, or your words are going to fail you. So I flipped that perspective for myself some time ago, very recently, and it's worked incredibly for me. I decided to have my own back. So what I do is, before I get on stage or when I'm preparing for the event, I envision the end of the event when the show is done and I'm walking around, meeting the client, meeting the event manager, and I envision them telling me that I've done a good job and that this was a great event and I did really well.
You're manifesting.
I'm not manifesting.
No.
What I'm trying to do is, when I envision this positive outcome, I think backwards and I do whatever it takes to prove them right.
Got it. That's not a perspective.
You understand?
That's not a perspective that I saw, but it's actually really interesting. Yeah. You're going the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah. You doubt yourself when you're envisioning the worst possible outcome. But the moment you are envisioning the best possible outcome, you track backwards and you do all the steps required, the content that you have to put in, the words that you say to prove them right, so that when they say that you did a great job, you know they mean it. You're making everybody arrive at that conclusion, that you did a great job. It's a very different perspective from manifesting. This is what I've started doing, and it's just helped me incredibly.
Do you give this a name for yourself? Because it's not manifesting. Do you call it something? Because I think it deserves a name.
It deserves a name. So let me call it best possible outcome instead of worst possible outcome. Or don't doubt yourself, back yourself. No?
Yes.
It requires a name. You're right. We should give it a name. I should patent it now.
For now, it's BPO. Best possible outcome.
Best possible outcome. It's BPO. And I want to prove them right. You know?
That's great. Yeah. That's a great way. I'm going to think about that as well. Because as you were saying, especially in our arts, imposter syndrome comes in every day, because you're around so many artists, you're so many creative people. You always feel that you're not enough.
Yes.
But I think if you tap into your own power and your own voice, you'll never think you're not enough. And that truly is for everybody to be able to do that. If you can just bring out there, you're never going to worry about what that person says, thinks, feels. You know that power already. I'm learning it. All these years later, I am learning it. I am going to say that there's so much I didn't know about it, and so much I still have to learn, but there's so much I'm looking into it now. So much of it I'm looking into that is really helping me as well. And hopefully the reason for this is eventually, we say, what's your purpose in life? I think after all the years of doing from acting, voice, I think finding this aspect of the voice, I think this is a purpose to go out there and help other people also find what's within them. I'm not a psychiatrist, not a psychologist, nothing like that, but I do understand a large chunk of this thing that we have inside us. I believe that we understand the power, and to be able to pass that on, I think would be lovely. That is something that I know you're doing. It is something that I'm in the process of doing as well. There was just one thing I wanted to just ask you. When you go and I know you're speaking to me, but when you go for your speeches, you go for anchoring, do you form a relationship with people before you start, or you just go onto stage?
Wherever I can, I do. Now, often you don't get a lot of time before the event to
mingle,
part of the audience, because
Correct.
There's a lot of things happening backstage. It's very hectic.
Right.
So your understanding of the company or the organization, of the audience, comes from their representatives, basically the client who's briefing me for it. You take the briefing, you do your research, and in your research, you understand the culture of the company. You ask as many questions as you can during that briefing meet.
Right.
To understand, to again break down, decode what makes this organization tick. What is the objective of this event? Preparation. You ask questions, then you do your research and try and correlate the two. Now, sometimes before the event, you just walk around while the audience is gathering and silently observe. Sometimes you get the luxury of time, and then you just mingle with the crowd as they're coming in and just have questions, ask them fun questions and try and understand what the culture of this company is.
Right.
I ask them simple things like, what's the best part about being here, man, today? And suddenly they open up and they tell you, and maybe they point to somebody who's made them feel great being part of the team. And you pick up on that, you make mental notes. And then when you're on stage, you have real life experience of the audience, and you get on and you mold your opening to incorporate all of these.
I like that term.
Yeah.
Mold your opening.
So don't be stuck on the opening that you've created. Often when I get on stage, I have no idea what I'm going to say after good morning or good evening. I don't know. I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about.
Which is what I meant by
my sentences form when I read the room as I step in. And to come to that point, you need a lot of experience.
I was just going to say, it's because you've done it for so long. When I did it the last time, I've only done it a couple of times, but that's why I went in with a life story for me to move on. So you can do it as long as you're connecting. The most important thing is to make the connection.
Correct.
With anybody.
Correct.
That's an interesting look at your world, Anuj, for me.
But I've had so much to learn from you, Ashwin, in this last little over an hour that we've spoken, and I'm so grateful, man. There is I've always learned from you, but this was such a structured conversation where it was aimed at understanding, like I said at the start, decoding our world of communication, and there's such gems that you have spoken about. From your own experiences and your own challenges, and how you've reinvented yourself even after years of being in the business. And then, thank you. I'm just so happy.
Yeah, just a disclaimer. Thanks for all of that, first of all. I still learn stuff from you, of course, because I always admire what you do and what you've set up. And just from singing to anchoring, I always think, wow, these guys, great, to have that. But if you'd asked me to do this a year ago, you probably wouldn't have got all this out of me.
Wow.
I'm letting you know that, because it's in the last few months, even I've done a couple of courses, even I've been learning things, looking at speakers, reading, trying to understand, because this is a world that came to me just by chance, sometimes just by watching a video on YouTube and you find somebody.
Yes.
So much of that happens. As much as we knock the internet and we knock these things, there are things that you just find a speaker online. You go, this person, or what he's talking about, or the world he's talking about just resonates with me. And that's what has happened in the last few months for me as well. So truly, you would have probably got a conversation just about voicing and dubbing. You wouldn't have got a conversation about anything else because I wouldn't have known about it. I probably would. I wouldn't have known the power of it, but I'm saying that because I'm not trying to say that, yeah, man, I've been doing this 10 years. Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's something that I've delved into. I've been learning, and I've been learning with the idea of trying to pass this on to more people, because it truly makes a difference in everybody's lives. I'm not talking about just the arts and entertainment.
Yeah.
The importance of anybody applying this aspect of communication and this aspect of the power of using your own voice to everybody.
Wow.
But you've been part of that journey. You've been part of that. I mean, I've called you for advice as well. I've called you for, I don't know, maybe all that chaos of the last 3-4 years since COVID is coming to something which I personally think actually makes a difference. I would really like it to other people.
And that's what this podcast is all about. It's just to try and make that difference to everybody who's listening.
I think so. I think it's nice for all of us to be able to do that.
Thank you, Ashwin.
Thanks a lot.
And good luck for everything ahead, man.
Yeah, I'll call you. I haven't been in Hyderabad, as in I've been in, but just again, one day and flying out the same day. So I've not been able to do the 2-day thing, but hopefully I still will do that. And of course, I'll call you if I'm there for 2 days. Yeah.
You've got a home. So
this man gave me the best meal in Hyderabad. Yeah, quick one. Yeah. A plate to feed a whole continent. Yeah.
All right, buddy.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anuj. See you. Bye.